Nothing created by the hand of man exists in a vacuum. Every word, every tool, every work of art presupposes a profound metaphysics. Scientists try to analyze this universal web of forces that shapes us and is to some degree reshaped by us. Philosophers try to comprehend it as a whole, and artists try to interpret it for those of us who are neither philosophers nor scientists. It's not that artists see what we cannot that attracts us to them. It's that they see what we see with a clarity we lack, and feel what we feel with an intensity denied most of us, and report their impressions with a certainty that transcends language, as a man named Rolland Golden does the South. At 42, Rolland Golden, New Orleans-born Southern landscape painter, has amassed an array of national awards, been the subject of one-man shows from coast to coast, and commands prices for his works which are, to put it mildly, complimentary. But he hardly fits the artist's stereotype. He's a quiet, reserved, plain-spoken family man with the air of a master craftsman. But his work is stunningly different. Watercolors, usually light and evanescent, become at his touch as strong and sharp as the blade of a good axe. The lines stand out hard and clean. The forms arch and leap like the works of an inspired architect. It's as though there were two men here, the man and the artist, and indeed he acknowledges such a duality.
When I am an artist and when I'm painting, in many ways I am not the same person I am when I'm at home or any other time. And yet I can be at home and almost anywhere. And thinking about my art, my painting, what I'm going to do, in a sense, I am always alone, no matter how many people I'm around.
Duality. It's an inescapable quality in dealing with Rolland Golden and with his land. Very likely, indeed, the South created the tensions that shaped his personality. For Rolland Golden's world is not really the little French Quarter cottage where he lives with his wife, 3 children, and a dog, or the cramped little studio a few blocks away where he paints alone, except for the squad of once stray cats he couldn't resist adopting. It's least of all the galleries where his works are displayed and sold, where there are grand openings and crowds of admirers and critics. His world is a place and a time less accessible to a stranger than perhaps any other this country will ever know. The rural Southland, a place of twisting Kentucky roads, cruciform Missouri shacks, Mississippi fences with posts like skeleton fingers, and the Ozymandian columns of a ruined Louisiana plantation house, dead amid dying oaks. It's a world of deep earthen colors and forms at once insignificant and mighty. A world where a man can be suddenly and terribly alone, and a place where there are ghosts of Indians, Spaniards, Frenchmen, Scotsmen, Englishmen, and black men who walked this land and tilled it and still walk in your shadow if you know how to look for them. Rolland Golden knows how to look.
I think that there's a presence in what I do, that people have been here recently and have been here for a long time. And the effects that they left on the surroundings that I paint, I think comes through perhaps in what I do. For instance, when I go out by myself on a field trip, I can be in the middle of the Mississippi Delta and not a soul around for I don't know how many miles, and yet I'm not alone. I have a feeling that there's somebody there. I can't explain it. And other people have told me they felt the same way about it. This is one thing that I feel very deeply about the southern scene. You're never alone if you are aware of what's happened in the past. And I suppose some of that comes out in what I do.
To the Southerner, his works say, you have been here, this hot sun, this gray cypress house, this road that twists with a river through a delta the river made. This is a part of what you are. Rolland Golden's Southland is a roadside world. Road signs are a common motif in his painting, as are roads twisting into the distance. But his relation to the roads he paints is not that of a traveler. Movement is the hallmark of what has been called the New South, the South of cities and suburbs, which could be readily mistaken for those of the Midwest or the Eastern Seaboard or the Far West, the homogenized South, fully assimilated into undifferentiated late 20th century America. That world where the roads ultimately go, that world Rolland Golden does not entirely love. Much of what it's bringing the South in human terms he does not see as progress.
I think it's changing very rapidly now. A lot of it I hate to see go, quite frankly. I think we have had, in many respects, a type of life unique by today's standards. I think the South is one of the most, if not the most, unique sections of this country with an individual character, not only of its buildings and its landscape, but in its people. And I think perhaps because of the Civil War, that's a long ways to go back, but it's still relevant. It's really 100 and some odd years, and not that long. I think the South moved forward much slower than the rest of the country did. So the change, of course, was more gradual, and things that I grew up with as a boy are rapidly disappearing. Even language traits of the people, habits of the people are disappearing. I think, for instance, when my father's generation and generation immediately after him is gone, something that we have had in the South in a form of grace and dignity is also going to be gone.
Be it added, Golden is not blind to the ugly things like race prejudice, which stain the land he loves.
I think that's one of the great tragedies of the South and this country. And it's curious that you mention that. I used to do a lot of shacks and things. Some people call them shanties. I think they call them shanties because they're trying to hide what they really feel about them. But after having gone in so many of them, the vacant ones, and looked at the way the people really must have had to live with newspaper on the wall to cover the cracks. And they don't really look as pretty to me anymore. So I certainly don't mourn the passing of that. But I think the South, like any section of the country, has its bad past and its bad present. I mourn the good things about the South that are passing. I don't know if mourn is particularly the right word, but I think we're losing a lot of our simple honesty in the South and in America. And I do think this is a tragedy.
And one other thing he deplores is worth mentioning: war. Something the South has experienced firsthand and which it hasn't forgotten. Golden finds nothing attractive in it. Roads. Some men and things pass along them, others remain. And Rolland Golden's Southland is a world of things which remain. It's a world very easy to overlook for those of us who merely pass by. For though it can be a world of great intensity, it is also very fragile.
If you don't look carefully, you won't see it. It's not there if you don't pay attention to it. It's not like the Mount Rainier and the great Rocky Mountains, which is obvious and spectacular, majestic. The South has a different kind of beauty to me, I think. We have mountains, of course, but the thing I'm attracted to is the beauty that's right next to you. The wild flowers, the barks on the trees, even the bugs. You're part of it. If you're born down here or if you've lived down here for a long time and you love it, you're part of the land. And I think the Southern man is very attached to his region and to his land. And the thing I've always loved about the South is that I can reach out and touch the beauty here. When I was up in the great far west, which is gorgeous country, I always felt like I was walking towards it, and never quite getting there. And in the South, I feel like it's all around me all the time.
But it's a strange sort of beauty. Things which remain along roads remain for all seasons. Yet in Golden's paintings, it forever seems to be growing late in the year. The summer greens appear now and again, and the warm colors of flowers. But it's largely a world of autumns and winters, the seasons when life ebbs and ends. And the human structures Golden paints, the houses, barns, fences, churches, seem abandoned to those seasons. Man was here once, but now is gone. And the men and women and children which once peopled them remain only as a half-seen, half-sensed, half-forgotten presence. Yet Golden denies much significance in this.
I don't think of them as being non-human. I think of them as being very human. The buildings that I do, a fence post, to me, it was put there by a human, and therefore to me it has a human characteristic about it. The plants, foliage, soil, everything else that I do, in the same strange way, has a humanist quality to me because I relate to it so strongly. And so many things that I love in life emanate from these things that I relate to. And I think other people do too. I think when people look at a sweet olive tree, for instance, they don't just think of a sweet olive tree. They think of something or someone that's associated with it, something that happened in their life. And to me, therefore, it does have a certain human quality about it. But it's more difficult to apply my ideas and my technique of theory and conciseness and sort of a strictness when you're doing people. They just do not come across. They look more like statues instead of people. So I have to alter what I do when I work with humans. I have to change my style somewhat. So this is one of the reasons, I suppose.
And yet, if people had fascinated him as much as the things they've abandoned, wouldn't he have adapted his style to what interested him about them? And why the preoccupation with the demise of things, the ruin of plantations and shanties, the stark forms of barren trees? But there's too much beauty even in these lifeless forms, too much that is strong in a theme which should be played to a dying fall, for so simple an explanation as morbidity. And then
because I am, I think, a Christian, I cannot completely give all of my time to my art. I mean, actually, time next to an artist's talent is his most valuable commodity. And you've got to be very jealous with it, and I'm very jealous with my time. But I want to be with my family some, and they deserve to have me with them. So between my art and my family and my religion, it really takes up about everything I have to offer.
Perhaps one key to this strangely compelling art lies here. It is the work of a very devout man who unabashedly, in an age of disbelief, believes in a purposeful universe, in a rational creator, and the promise of salvation.
There are a lot of times when I wonder if there really is a God, or if Jesus Christ really was our Savior. And all I can say is, if there isn't a God, and if Jesus Christ wasn't our Savior, I really don't think I want to stay here. Because if we seek a purpose in what we're doing solely based on what there is here on earth, we can never, ever be satisfied. It's impossible.
The death and decay without desolation that haunts you in these paintings. Is the theme the Christian leitmotif of death and transfiguration? And the absence of people in the great bulk of his work? Is it perhaps that Christianity has never sought to save men, but rather their souls? Is this what Rolland Golden speaks of and to in his works, to the souls of a people and their land? And all this, of course, is sheer speculation, and certainly insufficient, because if what can be expressed by a painting like this could be expressed in words, there'd be no need for art. But it is necessary, if for no other reason than to affirm that man, the child of God or of chance, is still co-creator of his own universe, and that his role in that creation is no mean part either.